Hiya, kiddos. How are you today? Boy, you're looking good. Are you ready for a fun story? Yep, we're going to have Curious George Goes to the Zoo. Don't you think that would be fun? What do you think, kiddos? To take Curious George to the zoo? This is Curious George. He's a good little monkey. See him? Curious George is a good little monkey, and he's always, what kiddos, very curious. George was feeling very excited this morning. The man with the yellow hat was taking him to the zoo. Ooh. As they drove, the man explained to George that this wasn't just any zoo that they were going to visit. It's called a wild animal park, the man said. All of the animals roam around freely. Whoa, that'd be cool, huh, kiddos? That's like in San Diego, they have an animal park, and a lot of the animals roam. When they arrived, George saw a huge banner. George looked up at it, but he could not read the words. It says, "Come celebrate our party baby rhino's first birthday." A friendly zookeeper explained what that meant. "It's an extra special day here at the Wild Animal Park," she said. "It's our baby rhino's first birthday. Should we sing happy birthday to you? Happy birthday to you, Rhino. We're going to have a party for her later on." A party? This was going to be a wonderful day at the zoo for George, wasn't it? Yeah, what do you think, kiddos? George tried to walk into the park where the animals were, but the zookeeper stopped him. "You can't walk in there," she said. "To explore the zoo, you have to ride in one of our special cars." Well, that would be fun, don't you think, kiddos? She pointed to a huge car that had no roof. Oh my, what fun this was going to be! George and his friend climbed aboard and the car drove into the park. See him? See him poking his head out? Yeah, George is curious all the time, so you know he's going to be looking. Soon they were in the midst of the wild animal park. "Look over there," said the zookeeper. "That's our pride of lions. We have a large family here." George pointed to the other direction. "Yes, George," said the zookeeper. "I see the giraffes too. Their tall necks help to eat leaves from the real high tops of the trees. And there are two ostriches running this way." George was happy to be seeing so many amazing animals. I love going to the zoo and into the animal park, don't you, kiddos? And if you haven't, you should try to get your grown-ups to take ya. The zoo car drove past a small pond. Pink flamingos waded in the water. Their heads bobbed up and down, and they walked on spindly legs. The flamingos turned pink because they eat so many pink shrimp, said the zookeeper. But George wasn't listening. He had never seen flamingos before. He was curious about them, how those flamingos were moving. He leaned out of the back of the zoo car as far as he could to take a look. But then, what happened? Whoa, we know George fell. First he lost his balance, then he fell kerplunk right off of the zoo car. His friend hadn't noticed he had fallen, and George ran as quickly as a little monkey could towards the pond. The flamingos bobbed their heads and lifted their feet one at a time and it looked like they were dancing. George decided to dance with them too. That was fun. Suddenly, the water in the pond started to move. Then a hippo popped up his head from under the water. Whoa, what a surprise! George stopped dancing to take a look. The hippo opened its huge mouth as if it were yawning. George opened his mouth wide too. It was fun to act like a hippo. See, even George has an imagination and he likes to pretend too. Yeah, it's fun, isn't it, kiddos? Just then, George noticed that something was rustling in the reeds near the pond. What do you think it could be, kiddos? George, of course, was curious. He wanted to see what was there. In an instant, he jumped over to the reeds. He poked his nose inside and saw a baby rhino. The tiny rhino was cute, but she looked a little bit sad and a little bit lonely. Oh, that's sad, don't you think, kiddos? George wanted to make the baby rhino feel happy again. He thought and thought maybe the baby rhino would like the flamingo dance. He jumped and bobbed and he picked up his one leg and he danced his feet up and down. The baby rhino picked her head out of the reeds so that she could watch. George danced more, and then the rhino walked out of the reeds. Guess what, kiddos? She was curious too. They were having so much fun that George didn't notice what was behind them. What do you think is behind them now, kiddos? What do you think? The zookeeper stomped over to George. She did not look happy, kiddos. The man with the yellow hat was running behind her. You are a naughty little monkey, said the zookeeper. You were supposed to stay in the car. You and your friend will have to go now. George walked to the man's side. He waved goodbye to the baby rhino. The man and the zookeeper turned to see whom George was waving to. The baby rhino! Why, we've been looking for her all day, said the zookeeper. She got separated from her mother. Oh, that's scary. Anytime you get separated from your adult. George was glad to see the zookeeper happy again. He and the man started walking towards the exit. The zookeeper ran to stop him. Thank you for finding our baby rhino, George, and just in time for her birthday party. Will you join us for some cake? George jumped up with glee. He had forgotten about the party, and he did love cake. The man and George followed the zookeeper and the baby rhino back to the zoo headquarters. The rhino's mother was waiting for her. See? Her mommy's waiting. Yep. The zookeeper brought out a special birthday cake was shaped like a rhino. George had never seen a cake like that before. You can have the first piece, George, said the zookeeper. I also have a special treat for you. She placed a bunch of bananas in front of him. George was very happy to have banana, but he saved room for some cake, too. Yep, you gotta save room, don't you, kiddos? When you know more is coming, you gotta save room for the goodies, see? Yep. Well, George had a fun day. I hope you had a fun day at the zoo with me and my friends here, Barkley and Bluey. And please come back. And starting in February, we're going to start having Spanish books on Grandpa Ken's Reading Time. So tell your friends, more people can have fun. Thanks, you guys. Love you. Remember, your smile doesn't do any good if you don't use it.